Japan is known as the birthplace of instant noodles. But recently, the Korean variety known as Ramen has taken both South Korea and the world by storm. NHK World's Kim Chun-ju has a look at the convenience food that's become a cultural icon.
A single packet of instant ramen costs about 13 cents. That's not a typo. 13 cents. If you ate it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day for an entire year, you'd spend less than $150 on food. No other manufactured food product on the planet comes close to that price point. And the wildest part, the companies making it are still turning a profit. So how is that even possible? How can something that fills your stomach, has an 18-month shelf life, and ships to over 100 countries still cost less than a stick of gum? To understand that, you have to go back to post-war Japan, a backyard shed in Osaka, and a man who got his billion-dollar idea from watching his wife cook dinner. After World War II, Japan was starving, not figuratively. People were collapsing in the streets from malnutrition. Food lines stretched for blocks, and the Japanese government, under pressure from the United States, was telling its citizens to eat bread made from surplus American wheat. But the Japanese didn't really eat bread. They ate noodles. A businessman named Momofuku Ando saw this disconnect firsthand. One cold night in Osaka, he walked past a black market food stall and noticed a massive line of people shivering in the freezing cold, all waiting for a single bowl of ramen. They looked miserable, but the moment they started eating, their faces lit up. That image stuck with him for years. Ando decided he was going to solve a problem that nobody else was working on. He wanted to create ramen that anyone could make at home, in minutes, using nothing but hot water. It had to be cheap, it had to be filling, and it had to last on a shelf without going bad. So he built a small shed in his backyard and started experimenting. For an entire year, he worked alone, sleeping only 4 hours a night, testing different methods of preserving noodles. Nothing worked. The noodles either fell apart, tasted terrible, or went stale within days. Then one evening, he watched his wife drop tempura batter into a pot of hot oil, and something clicked. The oil was pulling all the moisture out of the flour coating, essentially flash dehydrating it. What if he did the same thing to cook noodles? He tried it, and it worked. The flash frying process removed nearly all the water from the noodles while creating tiny pores in the surface, which meant they'd rehydrate almost instantly when you poured hot water over them. On August 25th, 1958, Momofuku Ando introduced chicken ramen to the world. And here's the irony. It wasn't cheap. It cost 35 yen per serving, which was about 6 times the price of fresh noodles at the time. Wholesalers laughed at him. They said nobody would pay that much for dried noodles. For a brief period, instant ramen was actually a luxury product. But then, demand exploded. Supermarkets had just arrived in Japan, television advertising was brand new, and Ando was one of the first food producers to use both. Trucks started lining up outside his factory, waiting for product to come off the line. As production scaled up, the price dropped, and kept dropping, until instant ramen became the cheapest prepared food you could buy anywhere in the world. So why is it still so cheap today? It comes down to 5 factors that all compound on top of each other. The first is the ingredients. A block of instant ramen is made from 4 things: wheat flour, water, salt, and palm oil. That's basically it. Wheat flour is one of the cheapest commodities on the planet. Palm oil is the world's most inexpensive vegetable oil. Salt and water cost next to nothing. The seasoning packet is mostly MSG, salt, sugar, and powdered flavoring, none of which are expensive to produce. When your raw materials cost almost nothing, your finished product can cost almost nothing too. The second factor is manufacturing. Modern instant noodle factories are almost entirely automated. Flour goes in one end and sealed packages come out the other. The dough gets mixed by machines, rolled flat by machines, cut into noodle strands by machines, steamed for about 78 seconds in a tunnel oven, then flash fried for roughly 65 to 90 seconds. After that, the The noodles are cooled, paired with a seasoning packet, and sealed in packaging. The whole process from raw flour to finished product takes less than an hour. A single production line can crank out tens of thousands of packages in an 8-hour shift, and it doesn't need many workers to run it. Maruchan alone produces over 3.6 billion packages per year across just 3 factories in the United States. The third factor is weight. Instant ramen is absurdly light. A single packet weighs almost nothing, which means you can stack thousands of them into a single truck or shipping container without worrying about weight limits. In the food industry, shipping costs are often one of the biggest expenses, and heavy products eat into margins fast. Ramen basically sidesteps that entire problem. You're shipping a dried brick of flour and a tiny foil packet. It takes up minimal space and barely registers on a scale. The fourth factor is shelf life. Because the flash frying process removes nearly all the moisture from the noodles, there's nothing for bacteria or mold to feed on. A typical packet of instant ramen can sit on a shelf for 18 months without refrigeration and still taste exactly the same as the day it was made. That means zero cold chain logistics, no refrigerated trucks, no freezer sections, no spoilage losses. For comparison, fresh produce can lose up to 40% of its volume to spoilage before it ever reaches a consumer. With instant ramen, that number is essentially zero. The fifth factor is scale. Over 120 billion servings of instant noodles are consumed worldwide every year. China alone eats roughly 40 billion. The sheer volume of production allows manufacturers to negotiate rock-bottom prices on raw materials, run their factories around the clock, and spread their fixed costs across an almost incomprehensible number of units. When you're producing billions of anything, even tiny efficiencies in the process translate into massive savings. All 5 of these factors work together: cheap ingredients, automated production, lightweight packaging, zero spoilage, and global scale. Take away any one of them, and the math doesn't work at 13 cents a packet. But combined, they create a product that's almost impossible to undercut. And that cheapness has had some consequences that Momofuku Ando probably never imagined. In the year 2000, the Japanese people were asked to name the most important invention of the 20th century. Keep in mind, this is the century that gave us airplanes, computers, television, and the internet. They chose instant ramen, because in a country that had literally been starving 50 years earlier, a meal that anyone could afford felt more important than any technology. That same affordability turned instant ramen into something unexpected inside American prisons. A University of Arizona study found that ramen packets have replaced cigarettes as the primary form of currency behind bars. Inmates trade them for clothing, hygiene products, cleaning services, even use them as chips in card games. Researchers discovered that this shift wasn't because of smoking bans. It happened because prison food budgets were slashed so severely that inmates needed ramen to survive. One prison staffer admitted they'd cut the cost of meals down to about $1.25 per tray. When your actual food isn't enough to get through the day, a 25-cent packet of ramen becomes incredibly valuable. And on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, instant ramen literally went to space. In 2005, Nissin developed a special version of cup noodles for consumption aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery. Ando himself led the project at age 91, thickening the broth so it wouldn't float in zero gravity and resizing the noodles so astronauts could eat them in a single bite. Momofuku Ando died in 2007 at the age of 96. He reportedly ate instant ramen almost every single day of his adult life, right up to the end. His funeral was held in a baseball stadium and attended by 2 former prime ministers. The invention he dreamed up in a backyard shed now feeds more people in more countries than almost any other single food product in human history. So the next time you tear open a packet of instant ramen and think it's just cheap food, remember what it actually is. It's the result of a perfectly optimized system. Dirt cheap ingredients, a flash frying preservation method invented by accident, fully automated factories running around the clock, packaging so light it barely costs anything to move, and a shelf life that makes spoilage irrelevant. Every single part of the process was designed, whether intentionally or through decades of refinement, to strip out cost at every possible stage. 13 cents. That's not a sign of low quality. That's what happens when efficiency is pushed to its absolute limit. If this video gave you a new appreciation for the cheapest meal on the planet, hit subscribe. Next time, we're looking at another product that's suspiciously cheap, and the reason why might actually change how you shop.